particular warning of any kind. Oh, let me turn this off. All right. Just wanted to make sure that I had the mic on correctly. So, you've seen the title, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Coping with the loss of Conor McGregor and Khamzat on the month of June. Considering that this whole entire month was supposed to be a celebration of mixed martial arts, as we were celebrating the month of May for the sport of boxing. And now, here we are in this particular instance of having two of the biggest superstars in mixed martial arts lost out of their big fights that were meaningful for one's career in terms of advancing, and the other one in terms of reclaiming an old glory in Conor McGregor. So what do we have now as a result of this? What we have is having to cope with the reality of combat sports, which is exactly what? Knowing that combat sports is unpredictable in the competition that is happening in front of you, but also unpredictable in the matchmaking and the ability to be able to make it to the match. That right there is the drama and an entire analysis in it all by themselves. Why? Because there's so many variations of injuries, so many variations of past injuries. For example, what had happened to Conor McGregor in the result of the Dustin Poirier fight, breaking his leg, having to rehab for a very long time. All of these factor into what is happening right now. Well, we can't control the fact that Conor McGregor has to pull out of the fight, and we can't control that Khamzat Chimaev has to pull out of his fight. What we can do now is understand that, number one, these guys have never pulled out for anything. If there's one thing that Khamzat and Conor McGregor have a lot in common, is that they never pull out of any fights and have fought injured, have fought in some of the most difficult circumstances, considering the fact that Khamzat Chimaev had fought during Ramadan. Conor McGregor has fought through injuries during the time of the Chad Mendes fight, and even in the Jose Aldo fight. He's fought many fights injured, Conor McGregor. The point is, he's never pulled out of a fight, and with good reason. Now, unfortunately, they had to pull out of this fight for the first time ever in their both illustrious careers. Really, that's not an exaggeration. When was the last time you've seen Khamzat Chimaev pull out of a fight? And when was the last time you've seen Conor McGregor pull out of a fight? He looks down on people that pull out of fights. He called Khabib a pull-out merchant. Khamzat Chimaev has fought during Ramadan. And when you look at those two narratives, man, this is highly unusual for what is happening. So now you got to speculate how bad the injury is for Conor McGregor, because it's stemming from a previous injury, just like what is reported with Khamzat Chimaev saying that it is part of a past injury as well. So both having two very common trends. Two top superstars, one on the rise and the other who is trying to maintain that in Conor McGregor. And not only is Conor trying to maintain that, he's trying to reclaim it by going in there against one of the most violent men in the UFC, which is Michael Chandler, and a matchup that, quite frankly, is suitable for him if he is in his A game in the way that we understand Conor McGregor to be during his doing a live right now. So let's continue on. What we're going to talk about now is coping with what is going on in this particular matter, what are you going to do when you don't have Conor McGregor and Khamzat? Well, this is what you do. You understand that combat sports is an unpredictable type of business, and this is what you get. However, through that unpredictability, there are things that you can still appreciate, such as a great matchup with El-Kheer. Obviously, not as compelling as, let's say, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. For what it's worth, it's really not the same and really not that compelling in that kind of matter, considering that we've already seen El-Kheer sleep Jiri. But with Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, there's a lot of unknowns, and we want to know what those unknowns are, and unfortunately, we're not going to get it. Khamzat Chimaev, there's a lot of unknowns. For the first time in his career, he's going to step up and take a tougher challenge. A guy in Robert Whittaker who literally loses to no one other than Israel Adesanya and Dricus du Plessis. Basically anybody that's a champion. He loses to anybody that is a champion caliber. So if Khamzat was to beat him, it was going to be his outcome in party. Now I said that Khamzat Chimaev can still get a title shot. If Ikram, for whatever reason, pulls off this win, and by the way, I'm not really too sure about that, and I can't give you an official prediction right now, unless, of course, I make a video about it and make you watch it and like and subscribe, like what a good listener should do. At least that's the fair thing that you should do, as I'm giving you guys some objective takes with this particular matter that we have to cope at the reality that we may not get this blockbuster month that we were looking for. But rest assured, as a hardcore fan, you can appreciate that you're always going to get good fights, especially with the UFC. With boxing, they're coming up. Obviously, the Saudis are doing a very good job at setting up some of the greatest fights that we've seen in this generation, and more to come on top of it with the plans that they have going on for their seasonal packages, their tourism that they are trying to attract for the world, and these new venues that they are creating on top of creating new cities. So the Saudis are doing a very good job at boxing, and now they want to get into the UFC. Here's the thing, the UFC is already a set brand. In other words, it's a machine that's already running. So what is the Saudis going to do? Maybe they're going to add just a little bit, but not too much to where it takes away everything that we understand the ethos of the UFC to be. In its likeness, in its image. Not only that, in the familiarity that we understand this particular brand to be. They're not going to mess with that. However, with the boxing side, the Saudis definitely messed with that. They created a whole different way of promoting fights. You imagine, how did they promote these Tyson Fury and Usyk fights, and these Francis Ngannou fights, and Anthony Joshua fights? They literally created an entire movie set, and not only that, changed the entire landscape of boxing. Even though the UFC is partnered up with the Saudis, the UFC is not going to change much. And you can write on the comment section below and tell me how much influence the Saudis are going to have on the UFC, if none at all, or if ever. But in the meantime, you got to understand that as for horrible as this situation is, you got to thank God that the UFC exists for the combat sports fan that you are and the demand that you need in order to see the best fight the best. You see, Conor McGregor, unfortunately, is not the best in the world right now. However, he is still an extremely compelling superstar. And with that sense of attraction, that sense of notoriety, not only that, the type of attention that he garners around the world and all the different types of media outlets. Now, we can also argue that perhaps maybe Conor McGregor is not really that liked in Ireland the way that he used to. There's an argument in that. But as a worldwide fandom of Conor McGregor, it is still huge, and he's still a brand to be reckoned with, and it is a reason why they managed to break gate records. And Conor McGregor's not even going to fight in it. Can you imagine the madness in that? Conor McGregor is not going to fight in it, but they're going to pay Conor McGregor money, and then they're going to bring Conor McGregor back because it's like getting Conor McGregor twice with him only fighting maybe once or 3 times, and getting him twice but not the 3rd time, in which, yes, the fans paid that much for a gate. It's amazing. Nobody can garner that type of attention, but make no mistake, he's not one of the best in the world right now. At least with Jiri and Prochazka, the one thing you can count on is that those 2 guys are literally the best in the world. But guess what? It is not the best in the world that we are attracted to seeing. It's Conor McGregor. How he's going to do in his injuries, and unfortunately, we're not going to see that. However, the brand that you are choosing to watch, not just Conor McGregor, but the UFC, guarantees you action-packed entertainment with the best fighting the best, and that's literally what you got out of the replacement. And then on top of that, you have Diego Lopez taking on Brian Ortega, some of the best 145ers in the world. And by the way, Ortega already getting a title shot, and Diego Lopez as an upcoming star that he is. So guess what? You may not get the most sensationalized fighter, but as a result of this injury, you're getting the best fighting the best. And arguably, this card is better for it. Which begs the question, does this MMA world really need Conor McGregor? You know what? Nobody ever asked that question. Every MMA channel out there will literally talk about Conor because, hey, it's the topic at hand for the particular moment. However, has anybody ever questioned if we really need Conor McGregor? Sure, he attracts the casuals. He attracts the people that are going to be there on June 29th, and then come July of Manchester 304, UFC 304, nobody's going to be there. Not the same people that were there for the Conor McGregor fight. So you got to understand the reality of that perspective. And nobody wants to take that into consideration. Why? Because we are all hypnotized by the superstardom of Conor McGregor. But at some point, we got to ask, he's past his prime. Conor McGregor is no longer really a demand in the world of MMA, at least within the hardcore space. Let's just be honest. The casuals are always going to come and pay top money to see him front row, which is the reason why these 5-figure front row seats literally made up the gate for UFC 303. Because Conor McGregor can attract the casuals. But what about for the long term? What about for the next pay-per-view? UFC 304 in Manchester. Are these guys going to be there? How about 305? For Australia, are they going to be there? Chances are no. So what I'm trying to say is that for all those people who are the hardcores, the Izzies, the Vicente Luques, the niches that none of these casuals know, the John Jones, you could throw that into the mix. All these guys in combination, once you agree, if you market them correctly enough, and if those guys decide to put themselves out there, that perhaps they can outpopulate Conor McGregor in terms of numbers. In other words, there's a reason why this company is $12 billion adding the WWE into their portfolio, and among other organizations into their portfolio. But guess what? Conor McGregor is a small percentage of that. So that's all that I'm asking. I'm just begging the question, is Conor McGregor really needed? When we got all these different superstars, sorry, my connection was going out there. I was saying that whenever there is a fallout, and I've said this numerous times before, but I've referenced the Joe Rogan. But you look at Everlast today, literally just not nearly the image of what he was in the 90s. Let me just say that, right? Let me say that kindly. However, when he walks around and nobody recognizes him and that song plays, he said, "This is when I realized this song doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the universe. Even though I had contributed to it, even though I had written it, this song, Jump Around, belongs to the universe and I have nothing to do with it anymore." And I thought that was very poetic, because when you look at Conor McGregor, all his accomplishments that he did in 2016, you can even add the Floyd Mayweather fight and how he gave a good account of himself even though he had lost. All those days are literally left behind in the memorabilia of mixed martial arts. And quite frankly, none of those belong to Conor McGregor anymore. You want to know why? Because Conor McGregor is not that guy anymore. And let me transition this to something else in real life, right? Because this is the best part about having a mixed martial arts channel related to real life situations, geopolitics, the streets, and everything in between. You ever seen those guys that are former military that for whatever reason, they are no longer in shape or no longer the type of guys that they were when they were serving in the military, right? A lot of these guys live off of their old glory. Those same guys that wore the varsity jackets that used to be the top jock in school, and when they got to college, for whatever reason, they couldn't make it in the D1 squad. They weren't the studs that they were in high school. And on top of that, they gained what you call the freshman 30, the first 30 pounds that you gain in your freshman year, and become an absolute shell of themselves. And yet they want to live through their old glory. But here's the thing. There's going to be pictures of you doing great things. There's going to be footage of you accomplishing things in the octagon, in the cage, or whatever it is that you do in life, whether you'd be a skateboarder, whether you're an artist, whether you are a podcaster. You're always going to have that one catalog that highlights your prime. And perhaps maybe it becomes legendary. And as a result of that legendary status, you have to understand that that work doesn't belong to you anymore, especially when it reaches a certain legendary level that garners the attention of people around the world, creating cultural effects through that particular brand of product or content you are consuming. So I want you to imagine that and put that in strong perspective. Because we really have to ask, do we really need Conor McGregor anymore in this game when we already have these great top superstars in the game? Let me name one for an example. How about Ilia Topuria? One of the top names in mixed martial arts right now and is already a champion. Has defeated Volkanovski. Of course, you can argue that Islam Makhachev softened him up. Nonetheless, a win is a win. He's a champion nonetheless, and because of that championship status, he obtained a visitation with the president of Spain. And nobody in that particular society of Spanish culture could do that unless you're a soccer superstar. And Ilia Topuria was able to do that. You want to know one of the reasons why Conor McGregor was such a top attraction during his day? One of the things that the UFC saw that they were looking to capitalize was a soccer crowd audience that Conor McGregor brought from Ireland. Now, you fast forward to 2023, 2024, you have Ilia Topuria, who sort of fills that void of what will be missing out of Conor when he leaves. And you got to understand, who's going to leave first, Ilia Topuria or Conor McGregor? I believe Conor McGregor. And if Conor McGregor stays, it's going to be within the status of the likes of BJ Penn or Tony Ferguson in their current stage right now. Constantly taking fights after fights, losing, and really just trying to get back to the horse, but never being able to get back to it. That's the reality of Conor McGregor if he stays a lot longer than Ilia Topuria, or if he doesn't leave anytime soon. But Ilia Topuria, because of this status of being in the clout of Real Madrid, which is one of the biggest soccer clubs in the world, garnering the attention of Spanish politicians, and at some point, maybe even meeting the king of Spain, as he already met the president. So there's a lot that you can work with Ilia Topuria. And Conor McGregor, with the jealous rage that he ensued in a Q&A, and this tirade that he put on against Ilia Topuria, man, that may bite him one day. Because he said, hey, you know what? You're going to become, what? The top Forbes athlete in the world? How is that possible? And of course, Conor McGregor is looking at his numbers right now. But hey, you can't blame him, because guess what? Ilia Topuria is somebody that is within the range of Conor McGregor's size. Of course, if Conor McGregor decides to fight 155, from what we understand, the Chandler fight was supposed to be 170. But nonetheless, what you got out of Conor McGregor right now is a man that is jealous and a man that sees another man coming up. What is this comment right here? Drew Pedrea says, I honestly thought it was because McGregor loved to talk-ish, which made people tune in. It did. That is the reason why. That's one. Now, is Ilia Topuria a trash talker? In a way he is, but not in a natural way that Conor McGregor is. You see, Conor McGregor, let me tell you one of the things that is really attracting a lot of fans towards Conor McGregor. Okay, he reminds you of a Guy Ritchie movie, right? A guy with an Irish accent, has this gangster vibe about him. On top of that, has this insane level of confidence that you really can't get if you didn't grow up in a world like Dublin. Just like if you grew up in a big city like London, New York, Los Angeles, you have a certain personality about you that you just can't get anywhere else in the world, nor can you get if you grew up in a small country town like Matt Hughes. So try to understand that, right? And Conor McGregor, he comes from a place where everybody is just trash talking everybody, putting everybody down, constant verbal assault, constant dissing, constant going back and forth. This is the kind of world that he comes from. So when he comes into MMA, it does him a lot of good. It does him a lot of favors. And as a result of doing him a lot of favors, a lot of people love this, and he happened to have become a superstar just in the nick of time of when people were creating what you would call the attitude era of mixed martial arts, which is sort of what we're in right now. What you see right now in the current moment of stage is, yes, what you would call the attitude era of mixed martial arts, which, by the way, was heavily influenced by none other than Conor McGregor. So as a result of this influence, you got a lot of guys that are trash talking. Look at Ilia Topuria. He's not a natural trash talker, but guess what? He tries to emulate that. He even tries to emulate McGregor's tattoos. He tries to do everything to try and look like him. But it doesn't work out because guys just have certain personalities. Now, I want to end it with this. And I want you guys to watch this from beginning to end, because throughout this whole entire 25 minutes, I gave you guys some real top knowledge jewels that will make you understand the mixed martial arts much from beginning to end. I'm going to end it with this, okay? I need you to understand. Conor McGregor, right now, is a big disappointment to a lot of people in the mixed martial arts world. Khamzat is a whole nother story. I have a video coming out regarding Khamzat that I need you guys to check out later on tonight. And I will drop another video for tomorrow, maybe do a review of all sorts of fights. I don't want to commit to a particular fight, but I'm going to end it with this, okay? We're disappointed in Conor McGregor right now. With Khamzat, there's a lot of question marks going on, and that's an interesting story in and of itself. However, if Conor McGregor was to fight, let's say in September, or maybe even in December, which is a possibility. Obviously, there is always a December card for the UFC in December, a Vegas card, and they're going to do a Vegas card for the Mexican Independence Day at the Sphere, which is available. Any of these cards, or maybe he can fight both. Once this happens, you got to understand all this goes away, and we look at Conor in a clean slate again. And if he wins, we're going to look at it in a very magical sense, like, wow, this is everything that we've expected Conor McGregor to be. And on top of that, he's on his A game. He's not doing drugs. He's not doing anything that is harming himself or doing anything inconducive to being that life of an athlete and a top-level UFC fighter. But all of that remains in question. And that is the reason why we're disappointed. Because throughout all the anticipation that we have looked for, and now we didn't get, we have to wait even longer and longer. But rest assured, when that day comes, we're going to be happy and we're going to be excited. And when that bell rings, we're going to be curious to see, does he still have it? Will he still be the man on top, or will he come close to it? And some of us in the hardcore spaces, we sort of know theater of the unknown that offers you in the world of combat sports. But right now, we're just very disappointed. Very, very disappointed that Conor McGregor is not able to things. And the way that they run things, they can offer you something when something falls out. The only difference is this anticipation of Conor McGregor's Ortega, Diego Lopez. El-Kheer is how he's going to respond after this matchup, because let's project him to win. How's he going to respond by taking another fight somewhere in September or December, and maybe all of those? Who knows? But once these hit the stage and see how they react to the pressure that they put upon doing that, and get up there with the big boys and give an objective take that mixed martial arts really needs, and also give